All right, guys, no Ravens game yesterday. It's our bye week, so that meant no stress for you, unless you were like me and many others who hopped on MyBookie. We're really excited for MyBookie to join us and promote in film study, so we want you guys to check it out too, because that's how I made my Sunday enjoyable. Is I hopped on MyBookie and picked out a few wins, some losses too, but I played a good game yesterday, picking the over 50 for the Steelers game and then picking the Skins to come up top on top of the Cowboys made it a good Sunday for me. Between the NFL, college, and MLB World Series now, there's plenty of games to watch and thousands of lines available on your favorite sports and events. You can turn your game into a payday now with MyBookie. You can bet on the NFL, on college, and you can even vote on the election coming up in just a few days. You can get the spreads, the championship futures, the player prop bets. It's never too late to jump on any of those. You can even do live betting while the games are going on. So sign up over at MyBookie. And when you do, use the promo code RAVENS to support Film Study. And also, because when you use the code RAVENS, RAVENS, you guys know how to spell that, then they will do a deposit match, dollar for dollar. So if you put in $100, they'll give you $100 free, all the way up to $1,000. Do that. It's the bonus designated with Film Study, so you got to use the code RAVENS, and it'll give you a little help and a little head start on your winning season. So use the code RAVENS to claim your bonus when you make your first deposit. Hop on there now. Election, UFC, some boxing matches coming up. Now's a great time to get onto MyBookie. All right, it's another By the Numbers. It's a special Monday morning bye week episode of By the Numbers. Ken, Dan, how you guys doing?
Life's good, Josh. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. We got new players on the team. We've got some excitement going in. It's Steelers week. I mean, it's a great time to have a bye.
Great time to have extra By the Numbers episodes. We'll have another one later in the week before the game, but this is a kind of a taking stock in the Ravens at midseason episode. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We're at a pretty good spot. Good time for a bye. Take a little breath and then get rolling for the second half.
Yep, get the Steelers coming off the bye, too. I know we're not too unhappy with the results of the rescheduling that went with this.
And a different type of bye with no traveling. So see how all that goes down. All right, well, let's get into some numbers. I was going to bring the number 6 to you guys because I yesterday was under oath for 6 hours as a witness in a trial, but then I realized I probably can't talk about that. So let's get to some Raven numbers.
All right, let's dive in then. My first numbers are plus 2% and minus 20%. That's the increase in yards per designed run in 2020 versus 2019, and the decrease in yards per game on designed runs in 2020 and 2019. So there's actually an increase in in yards per run on designed run plays through week 6. It's 5.44 yards, which is actually above the 5.31 from the historic 2019 season. However, a 20% decrease in rushing yards from last year. Kind of a combination between decrease in overall offensive snaps and also a decrease in run play percentage. So I think it's going to be a key component of the storyline for the remainder of the year, how that plays out.
Yeah, it sounds like a reduction in series success rate is driving that. The Ravens aren't grinding out as many first downs to have the additional rushing attempts that would fuel the number that is now at minus 20%.
Yep, definitely.
All right. I'm going to go with 3.08 and 2.43. The 3.08 is the historic points per drive in 2019, first in the entire NFL. I believe that was 6th highest of all time in 2020. They're at 243, 15th best in the league. The league is scoring a lot. The 243, by the way, compares pretty much on par with the greatest show on turf. Those great Rams teams of the turn of the century. So as offense in the NFL is up. Drives are being executed more efficiently across the league. But the Ravens are down this year by 0.65 points per drive.
Yep, still putting up some good numbers so far this year, but not as good as the historic season. So we'll see how it goes. So, all right, next set of numbers: 45.82% and 31.8%. That's Marquise Brown's share of the Ravens' air yards and his share of the receiving yards so far this year. So over 45% of the air yards are on passes to Hollywood. That's the highest in the NFL through week 6. The air yards over 31% of 31% share on the receiving yards, which is 10th highest in the NFL. For comparison, he was only at 21% of the air yard share in 2019. So a huge part of the offense for the Ravens so far this year. I would like to see some more connections with Lamar going forward, and we'll see how that plays out.
So who was second in the NFL? I'm interested to know after 45.82.
Oh, it was oh, I think it was the guy from Washington. Oh, what's
Oh,
his name?
McLaurin.
Yeah, he was up there. So.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I could see how there'd be teams that would only really have one deep threat, and you'd be getting a lot of the passes funneled through them, and the Ravens seem to be very extreme in that way. All right, let's move on. We'll go to the next one. The number is 34.11 and 24.91. And that is the 34.11 is the average starting field position for the offense. That's the best in the NFL. It's fueled by a defense and special teams that are both performing at a high level to make it so. The average starting position for the defense is the 24.91 yard line. So it's almost 10 yards worth, actually about 9.2 yards worse. That's a big, big difference, folks. And that, of course, is fueled primarily by a low turnover total. So they've only turned the ball over, I believe, this year 3 times. And good special teams play in addition would hold that number down. So really terrific differential in average starting field position.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when the offense isn't clicking on all cylinders. So that leads to the next number: 8.7, 132, and 6.2. The 8.7 is the yards per return for Prochet on his 15 yards. So talking just about what's leading to that field position you were just talking about. The 132 is the yards from scrimmage for Duvernay, and the 6.2 is the yards per carry for Dobbins. So all three have really, added to the offense or impacted the game so far this year. The 132 scrimmage yards for Duvernay is 90 yards receiving and 42 yards rushing, and that doesn't even include his obvious impact on kick returns. The 6.2 yards per carry for Dobbins leads the running back group in yards per carry, and if it qualified, it would be second in the NFL among running backs. So just real strong performance from all three young guys, and looking forward to what they can do in the second half.
Yeah, great set of rookies. I hope they don't get a receiver who's going to swelter off some of the opportunities for Devernay and Prochet because they've been so good. Devernay was one of those players that I had a hard time categorizing as I did the mid-season evaluation. Is he really a young producer already? Because he's playing great special teams as a gunner and a returner, and he's also playing some offense. I just didn't feel like he was quite there yet in terms of the breadth of his offensive contribution, but definitely having a great year so far. I'll go with my next is 6.0% and 8.3%. 6.0% was the sack rate in 2019, and 8.3% is the sack rate in 2020, which is 29th in the league. Mobile QBs take more sacks. Jackson has also escaped more difficult, or did escape more difficulty for positive yards in 2019. So, a combination of things went on there to make that number worse. The yardage number is actually almost as bad as it was for the full season through 6 games. They've lost 92 yards on sacks, and Jackson only lost 106 yards on sacks last year.
Yeah, he seems to be holding it a little bit longer and trying to look downfield for some big plays. So I might play into that a little bit. All right. Next set of numbers: 1.55 and 5.77. That's the defensive points per drive for the Ravens. and the points per red zone trip for the Ravens defense. So the 1.55 is the best in the NFL, while the 5.77 is the 29th in the NFL. So they're doing a real strong job overall in holding other teams to extremely low number of points per drive. But unfortunately, when the teams get to the red zone, they're allowing quite a few touchdowns. So imagine how good the defense can be if it improves even slightly in the touchdown percentage in the red zone.
Yeah, it's very high leverage numbers there. And it's pretty clear then that the Ravens defense is probably even better than they are on paper, quote unquote, at 155 per drive, because those numbers are not congruous at all. You'd expect them to be, no worse than in the middle of the pack, but certainly probably better than that if they're an above average defense at keeping people out of the end zone. So, that's a really good, I think, portent for the rest of the season for the Ravens defense. All right, I'll come up with the next one is 5.2 and 0.7. Those are the forced not to pass per play numbers in 2019 and 20. Let me tell you what that stat is. It basically takes out the passes from past plays and looks only at the scrambles and sacks. So in 2019, Lamar Jackson, on the combination of his scrambles and sacks, averaged an amazing 5.2 yards per play. Historic number. To take very few sacks. Most running back quarterbacks, most mobile quarterbacks take more sacks in the name of extending plays, getting throws off downfield. Jackson not only took few sacks, he took few sacks for relatively little yardage, only 106 yards of sacks last year, and he scrambled for 11 yards per scramble last year. So this year his scramble yards are down to 8.1, down from 11. He's getting fewer scrambles per game, and he's getting more sacks per game, as we talked about before, and that number's down to 0.7 yards per forced not to pass. And that is more in line with quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and some of the other good mobile quarterbacks that have positive numbers. Most of the quarterbacks in the league have negative numbers in that category still.
Yeah, that's an amazing difference. It's pretty crazy and explains a big part of the difference we see between 2019 and 2020. All right, my last numbers are looking forward to the rest of the season. 0.808 and 0.317. That's the win percentage for the opponents for the next 5 games versus the last 5 games. So the 0.808 is the next 5 with Pittsburgh twice, Indianapolis, New England, and Tennessee. They're 21-5. And then 0.317 is Dallas, Cleveland, Jacksonville, the Giants, and the Bengals. So going to be a real tough next 5 games, and then hopefully we're in a good spot and can just finish strong and get some momentum in the last 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, these next 5 games are really going to determine it. Josh and I would probably, as baseball fans and being winning percentage guys, or any kind of percentage guys in baseball, would probably just say 808 and 317 in those numbers. But that's cool, and it's a great differential. The next 5 games are going to determine not if the Ravens make the playoffs, because I think they make it no matter what, but where their seeding is and really how they fare, how they look relative to some of the NFL's best teams. I've heard a lot of white and black numbers, and I'm going to finish strong, I hope, in these terms, because I think you can cut up what the Lamar Jackson era has looked like in a couple different ways. And 0-6 and 24-0 are the two I'm going to talk about. 0-6 is the Ravens' record when trailing at halftime. That includes the playoffs and games started by Lamar Jackson. I have seen national pundits pointing to that, looking at the 3 losses of the Chiefs, the 2 playoff losses. Obviously, the loss to the Browns is the only other loss that fits into that category. But they are 24-0 when leading or tied at halftime over that same set of Lamar Jackson starts. So, it's the most extreme version of glasses half empty, glasses half full, and why you need to look at the entire glass. And not just what's good or bad about the drink there. Anyway, 800 winning percentage. It's really hard to make that look bad, but it is possible in this case when you look at it that way.
Yeah, crazy split, and that's pretty good, 800 winning percentage. So I'm pretty happy with that.
You know what's funny about this is they used to say in the NBA, you just needed to tune in for the last 2 minutes if you wanted to see the basketball game. If you turned on the game after halftime for Lamar Jackson, you missed it. Because the result was already determined. Well, you could just see this same as looking up in the paper at that point.
Yeah, that doesn't help me relax during the second half of the game.
No, me either. Yeah, on that 2-point conversion, you're probably thinking just that. It's,
Right.
it's going to be 24-0 in a second. No
Exactly.
problem. All right. Appreciate you, doing this so late tonight, Dan. You're a great co-host. We'll talk to you again next time on Film Study.